your mission. Deploy into a forward area by the most feasible means. Make your way overland to the objective area. Establish assault zones, drop zones, extraction zones, or landing zones.
201 flight, you're cleared into the drop zone.
Establish an air traffic control and communication function for the delivery of personnel and equipment.
Present surface wind 33.
Combat Control, the quick action force. The Combat Control Team is a small, elite, all-volunteer unit within the Air Force. Members of the team must be qualified air traffic controllers. They must be qualified parachutists. And they must complete a rigorous training course at the Combat Control School before they are entitled to wear the distinctive scarlet beret and combat control flash. The Combat Control Team has a long and proud record of service since their activation in 1953. They were first there in support of Air Force landing of men and equipment during the crisis in Lebanon. First there in Stanleyville, the Congo, when the United States Air Force helped evacuate civilians during that crisis. Combat Control Teams have distinguished themselves in support of Air Force operations throughout the world, in such emergencies as the China-India confrontation and the Dominican Republic contingency. And Combat Control Teams served with distinction throughout the Southeast Asia conflict, directing the landing of supplies and personnel into forward areas. Because of their quick reaction time and unique capabilities, Combat Control Teams are often called upon to support humanitarian relief missions. They were first in after the severe earthquakes in Peru, Nicaragua, and Guatemala, furnishing communication links and air traffic control. They have answered emergencies in Bangladesh, North Africa, and in Zaire. And in 1980, in the desert of Iran, a combat control team was the first in and the last out.
Okay, you guys ready to go? Let's go.
There are 12 combat control teams in the Air Force stationed at bases in the United States, Europe, and the Far East. Each team is made up of 2 officers and 22 enlisted men. They are dispatched all over the world in support of their missions. There are a lot of incentives to becoming a combat control team member. Distinctive uniform, extra pay. But the competition and the requirements are tough.
Welcome to Keesler Air Force Base, Mississippi. I'm Master Sergeant Al Corbett. You men have just joined an elite group, an all-volunteer force. Yay! To make the grade with combat control, you must qualify both physically and academically. I'll be your student training advisor.
Volunteers for combat control begin their training at Keesler Air Force Base. Here they undergo 12 weeks of training to become air traffic controllers, qualified by both the Air Force and the FAA.
Looking good. Standing tall and looking good. You want to be in Hollywood. You ought to be in Hollywood. Standing tall.
From the first, combat control trainees are distinct from other Air Force personnel, both in uniform and in physical training requirements. They prepare for the rigorous combat control school and for parachute jump school with daily calisthenics and a 3 to 5 mile run.
Start with the low clouds. They go from the surface to 6,500 feet.
The academic curriculum at Keesler is stiff also. A 6-hour day in the classroom, learning weather, landing and departure procedures, and all of the Federal Aviation Agency rules and regulations.
Cloud would be the stratocumulus.
A few minutes ago, right? He told ground control his position over here.
Air traffic control is a responsible and demanding job. Graduation from Air Traffic Control School brings the right to wear ATC wings. For the Combat Control Team volunteers, it brings something else as well. A 10-mile graduation run. For the Combat Control Team volunteers, this is just the first step, and the physical conditioning is essential. The next step is jump school at Fort Benning, Georgia.
O'Brien number 5! 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000!
Parachute jump school at Fort Benning is a week of ground training, a week of tower training, and a week during which they must make 5 successful parachute jumps. Completion of jump school entitles the men to wear their silver jump wings. Then, the final step, and the most rigorous training that these men will ever encounter. The Combat Control School at Pope Air Force Base. 0600, physical training.
Clearing the air passage.
0830, classroom instruction.
There is, just pull it out.
Instruction in combat first
Get the
aid.
person in this position. Put your cheek down. See if you can feel the air.
Through to the forward. Do this to both risers, then check your kick
Instruction in Air
wells.
Force
Make sure that they are
Jumpmaster
seated correctly.
procedures.
The ring is free. Do the left one first, then the right one.
One happens to be Leavenworth. You follow over to the right and it gives you the sheet number. In this
Instruction in map reading.
4. You come to the left, it will give you
In geographical coordinates.
and the size of it.
Now we're going to go to the lensatic compass. Again, 300.
The lensatic compass.
For nighttime use,
Study before a jump.
Aerial photos
Good idea
and
what the
overlays.
ground is like from the air. Pick out your point. Excellent.
Training in weapons. The M79 grenade launcher. The GAU-5 automatic rifle. The M60 machine gun. And training in how to use them.
Ready to fight.
5 weeks of academics and physical training. Then, into the field for 2 weeks to perform simulations of the real thing. The field deployments are built around imaginary situations. A recruit is appointed team leader and given a scenario to plan. He and his teammate must carry in the proper equipment. They're on their own to make their way to the objective area and get there on time. At the objective area, they get ready to furnish needed information to the aircraft. Weather. Mean effective winds from ground level to drop altitude. Altimeter setting. Wind direction. And mark the drop zone.
Dave 89, Terrell CCT.
The prime responsibility of combat control teams is to provide air traffic control and communications in the forward area.
250 at 15. Present service.
Go!
During the field training, students rappel off a 60-foot tower and out of a helicopter. They also complete 5 parachute deployments. They become thoroughly familiar with demolitions work, using different types of explosives. Field training includes forced marches and several overland missions, mostly at night, carrying full equipment. Completion of field training is a real milestone for those students who are successful. Now, for the first time, they qualify for the Scarlet Beret.
Tetra 2 Holland CCT, estimated altimeter.
The final phase of combat control school puts the men into the field as part of a combat control team supporting aircrew training exercises. Upon completion of this phase of training, the men are awarded the Combat Control Flash. They are assigned to a combat control team in the United States, or perhaps to a team in Germany at Rhine-Main Air Base, Clark Air Force Base in the Philippine Islands, Howard Air Base in the Panama Canal Zone, or Elmendorf Air Base in Alaska. On assignment, the men are trained for 6 months in the particular team specialty: Arctic operations, halo deployment, high altitude, low opening free fall, scuba, or self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, or in amphibious techniques. This training is continual as the team maintains its combat efficiency. At the completion, the volunteer is a journeyman combat controller, combat deployable. This is where the action is. Only a very few men can qualify for the combat control team to wear the Scarlet Beret and CCT Flash. It's an exciting career, a responsible job, with extra jump and demolitions pay. You're part of an elite group, a small, highly trained and highly qualified elite. Combat Control, the Quick Action Force.